All right, welcome back for another deep dive. You ready to jump in?
Always.
Awesome. So today we're going back in time, back to March 2013.
Ooh, okay.
We've got some interesting source material to dig into.
Okay.
A physics simulation workshop
Oh, cool.
held in Singapore.
Interesting.
Yeah, but here's the thing. No research papers this time.
Okay.
No textbooks,
Hmm.
just photos and program details.
Mm-hmm.
We're going full-on educational detective mode for this one.
I like it. And what exactly are we investigating?
Well, this workshop, it was all about easy Java simulations. Ever heard of that?
EJS, yeah. All right.
Okay. So EJS, for those who may not know, that stands for Easy Java Simulations, right?
Right.
I actually had to look that up.
Yeah, well, back in 2013, it was still kind of a new thing on the scene. Like a lot of educators were just starting to realize how powerful it could be.
So this workshop is like a little time capsule,
Mhm.
kind of.
Exactly. It gives us this snapshot of how teachers were exploring EJS and like how they were trying to use it to revolutionize physics education.
Okay, I'm intrigued. But before we dive into the actual workshop itself,
Yeah.
I think we need some more context. Like, what made EJS such a big deal in the physics education world?
Okay, so imagine, right? It's 2013. Like, think back to then. Interactive simulations weren't nearly as common as they are today.
Sure.
EJS, though. EJS offered this whole new way for teachers to create these dynamic models that students could actually, like, play with, manipulate them, experiment, and really get a feel for how the physics worked, you know?
So instead of just memorizing formulas, students could actually see how changing a variable would affect the outcome.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
It's a much more like hands-on experiential way of learning. And what's really interesting is that this wasn't just about using pre-built simulations. Like the workshop really emphasized being able to modify those models and even create your own from scratch.
Whoa. So teachers had to learn to be programmers too.
Kind of, yeah. They were given the tools and the knowledge to really tailor the simulations to their specific teaching goals and to the needs of their students.
That's super impressive. I mean, they were really pushing the boundaries of what was possible with educational technology back then.
Totally.
So let's get into this workshop. It was held at River Valley High School
Uh-huh.
and led by, get this, a professor all the way from Taiwan.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? So who were the participants? Like, who got to attend this awesome event?
Well, there were two main groups.
Okay.
First, you had about 20 teachers who already had some experience with EJS.
So this was not like a beginner
Oh,
course.
no, not at all. These were educators who were already committed to using simulations in their classrooms. They already kind of knew the ropes, you know.
That makes sense. And the second group.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. So there was this group, maybe like 10 to 12 members from something called the EduLab program.
EduLab.
EduLab, yeah. And these individuals, they represented different high schools in Singapore.
Okay. And get this, the Ministry of Education was even involved.
Hold on, the Ministry of Education.
Yeah.
Wow, so this wasn't just like some random teacher-led initiative.
No. This, had some official backing.
So it seems like the ministry was actively exploring how to integrate simulation tools into the bigger educational landscape.
It really does. It shows, even back then, there was this growing awareness of the potential of technology to, totally transform how we teach and how we learn physics.
Wow. And in Singapore, no less, a nation known for its commitment to innovation and technological advancement.
Exactly.
So this workshop, it wasn't just like a one-off event. It was part of a larger movement, a shift in how we think about teaching and learning physics. I'm really liking this. But let's get back to the workshop itself. What were they actually doing there? What did it look like?
Well, it was pretty multifaceted. So participants spent time exploring existing simulations from a website called NTN du Java.
Yeah. And this website, it's hosted by the National Taiwan Normal University. Basically, it was like this massive library of resources for physics simulations.
So they were getting inspiration from other educators, from people who were already using EJS in all these creative ways.
Exactly. And it wasn't just passively observing, you know. The workshop was really big on the importance of understanding the code behind the simulations, like being able to tweak it, adapt it to different learning objectives.
So they were really getting their hands dirty.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And of course, a big chunk of the workshop was dedicated to actually creating original simulations. The participants, they got to put their newfound knowledge into practice, building their own models from scratch.
Wow, I bet the energy in that room was incredible. I mean, just the excitement of experimenting and bringing your own ideas to life. You know, the source material actually includes a photo gallery from the workshop.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And even though we obviously can't see them, just the descriptions, they really bring the event to life. There's one photo in particular that caught my eye. It's like this group of participants all huddled around a computer screen, clearly super engrossed in what they're doing. You could practically feel the buzz of collaboration and, discovery.
It reminds you that technology at its best can be a tool for connection. It brings people together, sparks curiosity, and ignites a shared passion for learning.
That's such a great point. But wait, there's more to uncover.
Mm.
The source material, it also mentions this really interesting list, a list of additional simulations, all linked on that NTNU Java website.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they cover this vast range of physics concepts, like everything from simple mechanics to thermodynamics, wave phenomena, you name it, it's there.
It's like a peek into a secret library of physics knowledge.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting. But before we totally dive into that rabbit hole, I think we need to step back for a second. What does all of this tell us about how educational technology has evolved?
Ah, the big question.
The big question, yeah.
It's wild to think, right? Like that list, it's like a time capsule.
I know. I was just thinking the same thing. What would those simulations even look like? Technology's come such a long way since 2013.
Oh, for sure. The visuals have gotten so much better. We've gone from those kind of basic 2D models to these crazy, realistic 3D simulations.
It's like you can step right into a virtual lab.
Exactly. And the level of interactivity, too. Students can manipulate objects in virtual space, conduct experiments with virtual equipment. It's amazing.
Yeah.
They can even visualize complex concepts in ways that just weren't even possible back then.
But with all those advancements, do you ever wonder if something's been lost? That workshop, they really emphasized understanding the code, the underlying mechanics of the simulations. Is that still a thing today?
That's a really good question. And I think it's something a lot of educators are wrestling with. It's like this tension between accessibility and depth.
I see what you mean. You want the tools to be user-friendly.
Right.
Right, so students can jump in and start exploring right away.
Right.
But you don't want them to get so used to just using the interface that they miss out on those underlying principles.
Exactly. It's all about finding that balance. Like some modern simulation tools, they do let you peek under the hood, so to speak. You can access the code, you can play with different parameters, really get a sense of how the simulation is working.
Okay.
But a lot of times those features are kind of tucked away. They're not as front and center as they were with EJS.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense though, right? From a design perspective.
Yeah.
You want to make it as easy to use as possible.
You want a smooth experience. But I do think it's super important to remember that understanding how something works, that's just as valuable as being able to use it,
100%. And I think that's where teachers play a huge role, guiding students, encouraging them to ask those why questions, making those connections between the virtual world and, the real one.
You're so right. Tech can be this incredible tool for learning, but it's not a substitute for a good teacher.
Nope. No.
They're the ones that can really provide context, spark that curiosity, and help students build a deeper understanding of the material.
Speaking of sparking curiosity, remember those, what were they called? Those extra simulations from the NTNU Java website?
Yes. Tell me more about those. I've been waiting.
Well, one thing that really struck me was just how many different topics they covered. It wasn't just your basic mechanics or electricity stuff. They had simulations on everything. Thermodynamics, quantum mechanics, you name it.
So they were really pushing the limits of what EJS could do, even back then.
Yeah.
They were. And it makes you wonder, right? How much did those early simulations influence the stuff we have today, the more advanced tools?
Yeah. It's like tracing the lineage of an idea.
Yeah.
You can see how those early EJS experiments really paved the way for all the incredible simulations that students have access to now.
And it's not even just the technology itself, it's the whole approach to teaching. This idea of using simulations to create a learning experience that's more engaging, more interactive.
So important. Tech is just a tool, right? It's all about how we use it.
Totally. And I think that brings us back to the human element. The teachers, the students, those are the ones that drive innovation, that push the boundaries of what's possible. And that's what makes this whole deep dive so fascinating, honestly. We started with this simple workshop in Singapore.
Yeah.
And it's led us to this much bigger conversation about how education's evolved, the power of technology, and how important human curiosity really is.
It really has. It's this great reminder that every innovation, every breakthrough, it comes from somewhere, right? And often those roots, you find them in the most unexpected places.
It's true. Like a physics simulation workshop in a high school computer lab. Over a decade ago, who would have thought?
Exactly. And that's the beauty of these deep dives. We get to uncover those hidden connections, trace those threads of innovation, and gain a much deeper appreciation for the forces that shape our world.
I love that.
I totally agree. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this episode. But before we go, I have a little challenge for our listeners. Okay, so remember that list, the one with all the extra simulations from that NTNU Java website?
Yeah, yeah.
I was thinking, what if our listeners, what if they actually went and check out some of those simulations?
Oh, I like that. Like a little homework assignment.
Exactly. It'd be like a virtual field trip
A field trip.
back to 2013.
Sure.
They could see what those early simulations look like, see how they tackled different physics concepts.
I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll be surprised. Like, maybe those simulations are still super engaging, even by today's standards.
Right. Or maybe they'll even be inspiring. Like, what if some of our listeners are like, hey, I want to make my own simulation now? Using modern tools, of course.
No, that would be awesome. We could have, like, a whole wave of new interactive physics content.
I think what's really cool about this whole deep dive is how it shows how innovation works. Like,
yeah.
it's a cycle, We started with this workshop for over a decade ago.
Yeah.
We saw how those teachers, they're like pioneers,
Yeah.
pushing the limits of educational tech. And then we traced those ideas all the way to today.
It's like progress isn't always a straight line.
Right.
It's about building on what came before, taking inspiration from the past and then adapting it, making it work for the present.
And that adaptation part, that's key.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Tech has changed so much since 2013. But those core ideas, using simulations to make learning more engaging, more interactive, those are timeless.
Totally. And it just goes to show, right? Tech's a powerful tool, but it's the human element that really makes the difference.
It always comes back to that, doesn't it?
It does. It's the teachers who guide, the students who explore, the creators who, push the boundaries. They're the ones moving things forward.
So to all our listeners out there, whether you're a total physics nerd or just starting to, dip your toes into the wonders of the universe, I really encourage you, check out those simulations, the ones from the NTNU Java website. You never know what you might find.
Maybe you'll be inspired to create something totally new, something that'll, shape the future of physics education.
That's the beauty of it all, right?
Yeah.
The possibilities are endless. Well, that's about it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.